Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Commonwealth Club program. We're celebrating 40 years of Cheer SF, an iconic, a treasured, a heritage organization that has supported the LGBTQI community for 40 years. This is one of over 200 virtual programs that we have produced here at the Commonwealth Club, and free of charge since having to socially distance and close down due to COVID-19, the pandemic. And so thank you for supporting us along the way. I'm Michelle Meow, the host of the Michelle Meow Show, your A through Z, covering the LGBT, LMNOP, and everyone in between here at the Commonwealth Club. So very grateful to the organization for providing a platform for us to discuss social justice issues with an intersectional approach. And now I'm excited to introduce to you all some great people who have supported the community and have been a part of Cheer SF, maybe not for the whole 40 years, but certainly their legacy, their contribution is very much appreciated. And so we've got Steve Burke, who's with us, and Steve is a senior vocational rehabilitation counselor for the state of California. He served Cheer SF from 1990 to 2015. We have Win Pham, who's the board secretary of San Francisco Pride. This will be his fifth year doing so. So congratulations to Win for serving another term as board secretary for San Francisco Pride. He's also Mr. Gay San Francisco 2016 and has served Cheer SF since 2002. We have Stanford Smith, who's a drag performer and social justice activist. Some of you may know as Africa America, has been a part of Cheer SF or served Cheer SF from 1999 to 2016. And Anel Zarata, who's the interior designer or an interior designer based in Oakland and served Cheer SF since 2017. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I feel like we could go all around the Zoom block here and do a little cheer, or is that too much to ask for? Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do that at the end. End, but that would be fun. Well, let's start with the history of Cheer SF. I had mentioned this is a special program. We're celebrating 40 years of the organization. And certainly the organization continues to be incredibly important to our movement. But 40 years ago, how did it all start? Who would like to jump in on that question first?
Steve Burke.
I'll take that one. The Cheer San Francisco, of course, 40 years ago was 1980, and it was founded by Guy Andrade, who lived in Hayward, where he was raised. And I went to school, and my memory serves me right, having conversations back in 1990 when I first met Guy, was that he was coaching Tennyson High School cheerleading team, and he really enjoyed that and had a vision of starting a team of all gay men cheerleaders in Hayward, and he made that vision come true, and that's when the organization started in 1980. And my understanding was that they started practicing at the one of the gay bars in Hayward at the time, and I believe it was called the Spoiled Brat. And so the bars in Hayward supported them, and they, I believe, started to do perform at the Gay Pride event in Hayward, and then eventually did the Gay Pride Parade in 1980. So that's how it all started.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, picking up from where Steve left off, when I met the Rah-Rahs, we were originally called the Hayward Rah-Rahs, like Steve said, in Hayward, and then they became just the Rah-Rahs. And then when I met these lovely people, it was about 1996, and they were just changing. They came back from a trip to the Gay Games, or was it the trip to Dallas, Steve?
Dallas.
Yeah, the trip to Dallas. And they decided, you know what, we're not going to be the Rah-Rahs anymore. We're going to be Cheer San Francisco, because that's more over and encompassing of what an organization is, because Cheer Dallas was Cheer Dallas. So they decided to become Cheer San Francisco. And then it still was all male until 1998. 2008, then our first female performer, Liz Breen, joined the team. And she was like, we always said, she was the first girl. And she's like, I'm the first girl ever. and so Liz joined the team. And we were always open to, since being Cheer San Francisco. And I know it started off as gay men doing pom-poms. And that was the novelty of it. And that was the great thing of it, because people couldn't believe that all these men could look like a really good cheer and song dance team, and also stunt. Having men up in the air was a novelty. You'd see at college games, you see men on the bottom and women in the air, bases and tops, bases and flyers. I'm trying to keep this clean. So that's kind of more of the history when we got up to the late 1990s, early 2000s. And then moving from 2000 to now, it just has snowballed into this wonderful global group of phenomenal fundraisers.
Sanford, you mentioned global group. I mean, I know that there are several other cheer organizations around the world. Was Cheer SF the first official organized 501c3 to kick that off?
Yes. Yes. Steve and I and another young man named Elliot Kahn and Adriano de la Cruz, we were the four people who kind of got together with Darwin Choi and sifted through the ashes and the rubble of what used to be what's called the John Sims Center for Performing Arts. And we were under their umbrella as a sponsored group for a nonprofit. And we decided in 2001 that we needed to become our own nonprofit 501c3. And we did.
Does anyone remember how much the first fundraiser raised?
Yeah, we started the Cheer for Life campaign mission in 1999, and we did some events that fall, Michelle, and then by the first part of 2000, we had our first check, and it was, I believe, at least $1,000, and our first beneficiary, if I'm getting this right, was the Lion Martin's Women's Clinic.
Yep.
Health Clinic.
Yep.
Wow.
So that was our very first donation.
Yeah. Now, I know that Cheer SF has raised, and I mentioned it earlier, millions. And then when you start to add that up with the global community of the cheer organizations, it's a whole lot. And the impact that I know that a lot of the money has gone to HIV/AIDS organizations. And when you talk to heritage organizations within the LGBTQ community about, why they were raising money or why we mobilize and organize, many will talk about how the HIV/AIDS crisis had also, impacted us as advocates and activists and community members in getting together to help our community. And so maybe if a couple of you would like to talk about that, how did the HIV/AIDS crisis, especially here in the San Francisco Bay Area, impact the organization or drive the organization to come together?
Okay, I'll keep talking. So, and I think I'll grab Stephen on some of this. So, Cheer SF was no stranger to having members living with, and we lost members to HIV and AIDS through the late 90s, early and late 90s. One of my favorite memories of my first year with Cheer San Francisco, we went to Palm Springs Pride, and we were talking about, was it Francis we were talking about, Steve? Probably Francis, because Francis was this queen that was on the team who had a lot of sass. He was very sassy and had a fast little fresh mouth. And I remember he had passed right before I joined the team. And there were always these jokes on the bus. We actually took a bus together. Oh my God, a bus trip. Cheer SF on the road. It was crazy. HIV and AIDS has played a major role in our community on the team. The person who actually came up with a cheer for life phrase and kind of really spearheaded the cheer for life movement was a guy named Richard, who ended up starting Chicago Spirit Brigade, which is one of the PCA teams we'll talk about later. And so he kind of said, we really need to do this and this. And Steve Burke, I have to tell you, in all his wisdom as a leader of the team, you have to know that CheerSF is a team of a bunch of different leaders, but there's always like one kind of figurehead leader. And Steve was our leader for so many years. And the words out of Steve Burke's mouth were like, okay, do it. He would never say no. He would always go, well, okay, figure it out, do it. And I think that's how we got there.
And I'm
Steve,
going to chime in too.
Yeah,
to your point, Michelle, with the whole HIV/AIDS focus, when I joined the team in 2002, the mission of CheerSF put HIV and AIDS front and center. When we would list out the major causes that we would support as an organization, it was always, we help people with life-threatening illnesses such as HIV/AIDS, breast cancer, and other challenging illnesses. So we were really centering that. And I think it really harkens back to sort of the reason that Guy Andrade founded the Hayward Rah-Rahs initially. It was a response to the HIV/AIDS crisis, his friends and family dying left and right. Yeah. So I think to honor that foundational moment is why we always lifted and centered the HIV/AIDS cause first and foremost.
Thank you for that. Steve, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And throughout those, until that first donation in 2000, we would perform pro bono, or we would receive a donation to, so we could have a meal or, get our travel expenses covered. So we were always giving back, but then we just exploded once we started that mission. And another team, the team in Dallas, had a Cheer for the Cure. So their focus was exclusively HIV, which it was needed. And our focus was HIV. And we thought, let's also be open to other, life challenging conditions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we expanded that to Cheer for Life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great segue then to ask each and every one of you, your own reasons for joining CheerSF and kind of, what your journey has been prior to that. Were you performing and all that good stuff? So we'll start with Anel, your reasons for joining and why?
Yeah. So I guess I was a cheerleader in high school. I did like competitive cheer and then also like sideline cheer for football games and basketball games. And then after high school, I went to UC Davis and I didn't really do cheerleading there because I wanted to focus on school. But kind of during that time, I did a lot of fundraising for a bunch of different organizations and nonprofits in Davis. And when I graduated, I was like, I kind of want to like do, go back to cheerleading or go back to performing or, go back to doing something. And on my last year of Davis, a friend of mine was like, hey, have you ever heard of, PCA? And I'm like, oh, no, what is that? And he was like, oh, it's an organization where, there's a bunch of different cheer teams all over the nation that are there adults and they do cheerleading and they raise money for different really good charities and organizations. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So I joined my last year of Davis. I joined for a season another charitable cheerleading team in Sacramento, and that was super fun. And so then when I graduated Davis, I got a job out here in the Bay Area, and I was also kind of stuck like, oh, I kind of want to do something all over again. And I remember when I was on the other charitable cheerleading team in Sacramento, I saw Cheer San Francisco at Rainbow Festival. And I don't know if they still do Rainbow Festival in Sacramento still, but it was only like 10 of them that went, but even those 10, it was like, oh my goodness, these people are pros and they're amazing. And I don't know how they're throwing all these tricks. And it was like at a way higher and cooler level than what we were doing at the other charitable cheerleading team that I was on. And I was like, oh, it would be so cool to like be on that team. I don't know if I'd ever be able to like qualify for it, but it'd be so cool. And so then when I moved to the Bay Area, I like took a year on pause, and then the year later I was like, okay, maybe I'll try and I'll audition and see what happens. And so I went to the audition. This is in 2017, and I made it through, thank goodness. And yeah, I've been on the team ever since. And it's funny because the season after, I was voted in captain, so it was like really cool to not only like be part of the team, but then to like then go the next level and then also be captain for 2 seasons after that. Yeah.
Awesome. When?
So I joined Cheer SF at the end of my freshman year of college. And before that, I actually had zero interest in cheerleading. In high school, I was friends with the cheerleaders. I thought they were wonderful, but it just didn't seem like the thing for me to do. In high school, I also founded my Gay Straight Alliance at the high school where I went in the South Bay. And so that instilled in me this sort of activist bug. I just kind of wanted to be an activist on some level moving forward. When I saw Cheer SF perform after I graduated from high school at the San Jose Pride Festival, I was kind of amazed that they not only had people of all ages on the team, but also they had men being thrown in the air. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. On concrete, that doesn't seem very safe, but I wonder why they're doing it. And I found out it's because they're kind of activists and fundraisers and philanthropists. And that's what hooked me onto this idea of Cheer SF. I even remember going up to the booth at San Jose Pride that year, and Michelle De La Paz, this phenomenal lady flyer, tried to recruit me. She said, you'd be a great mid. And I was like, what does that mean? But I took a flyer anyway, a tryout flyer. I auditioned, I made it, and I have been blown away by the sense of community, not only on the team, but also off the team. We are humanitarian focused, we are fundraisers, we are charitably minded. And that's what's kept me on this weird athletic drill team all these years. I'm now entering my 19th year since 2002. And I just have never looked back. I'm only looking forward, and I cannot wait to see what's ahead. I'm so excited and glad that I made this choice.
Wow, 19 years. I mean, I bet, a lot of the people who have stereotyped cheerleaders or those in cheerleading, as an athletic activity, think that once you pass college, like that's it for you in some ways, unless I guess you go to the NFL or something like that. But congratulations, 19 years. Wow, that's incredible. Stanford.
So I first saw Cheer SF in about 1996, and I saw them and I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. I really, really wish I could do that. And at that time I was dancing on a hip hop dance team called Culture Shock. And so I was the national coordinator for Culture Shock. And I also was doing this little fundraiser called Workout for Hope, which was an aerobics against AIDS fundraiser. So I was always doing fundraising and being part of the trying to stop AIDS, trying to stop the pandemic crisis. And then in 1997, I invited Cheer SF. I was in charge of the event, and I invited Cheer SF to come and perform, and they came and performed. And that's the first time I met Steve Burke. And Steve is so great. And I had been friends with a couple other people on the team, but I met Steve, and he looked at me and goes, how come you're not cheering? I said, well, I don't really have time for that. He goes, whatever. And then I would see them every year, and I would either be dancing with Culture Shock, or then I left Culture Shock, and I had a free moment. I had moved home. A family member was ill, and they passed, and my time was freed up a little bit, and I bumped into Steve at Pride, San Francisco Pride, 1999, and I said to him, oh, I'm thinking about trying. He goes, try out or don't. Here's the flyer. Because he's been like recruiting me for 3 years. I said, okay. So then I went to a workshop and I tried out actually at the workshop because I couldn't make the formal tryout date because I had a work commitment. I tried out, I got on the team. Within like a month or two, I joined like what's called the choreography committee. And then the rest is history. I became the coach in like 2001. Steve and the other leaders of the team thought that I had a good leadership style and said, you know what, get out there, do the mic, do this, do that. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I remember like we used to show up to everything because at that time we weren't as big as we've become now. There was a time that we were like maybe 21, 22 people strong. So sometimes we'd be small. And one of my favorite memories of being on Cheer San Francisco was there was this little thing called the Albany Stroll or the Solano Stroll. It was Steve and I, Morgan, Adriano, Arnell, and Craig. And it was 6 of us. And we had just come back from cheerleading camp. We went to our first UCA cheerleading camp. Universal Cheerleading Association. We went to our first cheerleading camp and we were like, we have these new skills. Let's show them off. Crazy. And that's the trajectory. I mean, Cheer SF was always a good dance team and pretty good stunners. And then all of a sudden we went into that UCA camp and exploded. Our technique got better. We used to go to college camp every year. And then all of a sudden we became like the mascots of college camp. Like all the instructors would bid for the California college camp. And only so many could get it because they knew Cheer San Francisco was coming. So they're like, oh my God, Cheer San Fran is coming. Cheer San Fran, they're coming. And so it was just so much fun. And talking about that, I have to tell a little story before we go to Steve about Win Fam. So his first cheerleading camp, he gets nervous. Win's first cheerleading camp, we're out there. It's the first time that they asked Cheer San Francisco really to perform something. And we kind of threw a kind of little ratchety routine. But the best part of camp was it was Britney Spears. Was it Slave for You that came on? Yeah, Britney Spears' Slave for You came on. And Win and this other guy named Nikki, we call Nikki Bangles, went out on the floor and lip synced the House Down Boots. And they the crowd went crazy because everybody else was out there dancing. And here these two are lip syncing for their life, living. They gave the children everything, and it was awesome.
So, Steve, yeah, your story. Well, I mean, we kind of heard it earlier, but the reasons for joining or being a part of Cheer SF.
Yeah, my story is I'm from a small town it was a small town, still is, Martinez, California, from a sports family, and always followed sports. And before and once I was in high school, I loved the cheerleading teams. Those were back in the days when you had to get to the stadium an hour in advance because everybody in town went. Friday night lights happened right here in San Francisco Bay Area, just like in the heartland. And loved the marching band and loved the football team and all the spirit and camaraderie and that surrounded it. And then I went up to Sacramento State and joined the cheer team then and wanted what I had experienced in high school. And I was at primarily back then a commuter school, and I said, we're going to have pep rallies outside the student union. And there was a lot of skepticism, but we had like maybe a couple hundred people come to the first rally. And by homecoming, there was 1,000 people at the rally. And at the games, people were actually cheering. And I was a senior when that happened. And I was like, oh, I'm bummed that this is all over. And then I came back home and coached for several years the cheerleading teams at my alma mater, Alhambra High School in Martinez. And along the way, I'd had acquaintances who told me, have you ever heard of this team called the Rah-Rahs? You'd be really good for that. You seem like kind of a cheerleader dude guy. And I go, how do I get a hold of them? Back before we had computers and the internet. And I tracked down Guy, and he said, come on aboard. And that was February of 1990 at Collingwood Park. There were about 10 guys, and I walked up and they had pom-poms. I'm like, oh my, pom-poms, interesting. Okay, let's do it. And so that's my story. And because of my love for for cheerleading and doing something positive and having something, being part of a team is so life enriching and so life giving, and having that physical activity and performing and daring people to enjoy what we were presenting to them. And it was easy because CheerSF is extremely loved.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I've said it many times, but as a commentator for, San Francisco Pride, the parade broadcast, one of my favorite moments is always the Cheer SF performance before the rest of, the contingents come down Market Street. And so that is a very treasured and cherished, tradition, I think, part of our movement. But the reasons for you to join, tells me a lot of things. I mean, 40 years of Cheer SF and many other organizations in our movement have certainly made an impact to the outside world, to society maybe, that hadn't always been so welcoming for LGBTQI folks. I would imagine that, CheerSF has also itself, the organization, diversified and become, as inclusive as possible for every member of our communities and our allies. Share with us, I'd love to spend some time, if y'all could share some of your experiences throughout your time with CheerSF that was memorable, or maybe it was a moment in which, some hateful person said, no, you can't be a cheerleader or something. I know those stories exist, and everyone from, Gay Men's Chorus to even the LGBTQ, San Francisco band will talk to you about how they've been able to break down bigotry or hatred with the work that they've done. So let's start with Anel, go back around the block of this Zoom thing that we're doing. And yeah, let's spend some time with some of your personal favorite or memorable moments with CheerSF.
Yeah, I think my favorite year so far has been my first year. So in 2017, when I joined, not only was I kind of given this like community and like immediate friends that I didn't have like moving straight into to the Bay Area, because I knew no one when I moved out here. So it was like really amazing to be able to have all these people who are like so willing and open and friendly and happy to see you. That was amazing. And also when I joined, I remember during auditions, they were like, oh yeah, and this is a gay games year. And I'm like, what's gay games? What's this thing about gay games? And some of the members were like, yeah, it's just basically like the Olympics, but focused towards the LGBT community, and it's like amazing, and you get to travel somewhere. And this year it's Paris, so 2018, the Paris year for gay games. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I get to go to Paris. That's like amazing. I get to be a cheerleader, and I get to like not only have all these friends that I've made during in CheerSF, but also like make new friends around the world. So I think that's been like one of the most memorable moments. And as far as seeing kind of like what the impact is of CheerSF in the community, I think my first year, I don't have like a negative story, but I think my first year, it was really my first year going to a Pride, or going to like Long Beach Pride and Castro Street Fair. So it was really like amazing to see, because when I grew up, I always like had the support for the LGBT community, but there wasn't that many in Sacramento, or I wasn't really involved in the community. And so it was really amazing to really go to all these festivals and see the love and the support and like all the positivity out there during all of these like really great events. And one of the, I guess the negative things that was surprising for me to see that I've never seen before is like going on parades and seeing, the people with like the signs and the pickets, saying negative comments and like yelling with their like megaphones. I think that was one of the things where I was like, why are you here? Yeah. It's so crazy and unbelievable to me. And it's also been nice to see that like every year it's like less and less of those people on the sidelines. But yeah, it's being on CheerSF has given me just a sense of home and a sense of friendships that I know that like won't ever end no matter what. Even if I leave, if I take a year of hiatus, like I know that coming back that, there's going to be all this like great friendship and connections all over again.
And by the way, you don't have to add it. If there's no negative stories, that's a testament to the kindness, the greatness of our communities. So I'm just fielding if you had any of those experiences, feel free to share. But thank you. That is awesome. And those protesters, by the way, yes, they're a lot fewer nowadays, I think, but have kind of morphed and have done or going to other places, which we'll talk about in a different show. When?
I'm glad to share some of my most memorable moments. One was around 2005, 2006, toward the end of my college education, around my 4th year on Cheer SF, I think. So I went to college at UC Berkeley at Cal, and at the time we did not have a cheerleading stunt team. So what the women's basketball program did was they enlisted Cheer SF to come cheer at their games, which was kind of badass. They put Cal t-shirts on us. We cheered from the stands and we took over the court at halftime. And we did that several times. It was amazing. And I even had classmates on the women's basketball team come up to me during class afterward, like in the weeks following, saying, "Hey, that was kind of awesome what you did. I had no idea that you did that." And so that was a cool moment to share with a college community that had no idea what collegiate style cheerleading looked like. Another cool moment was in 2010, Cheer SF was invited to audition for America's Got Talent season 5 on NBC. And we made it to the top 48, which was astounding. Out of, I think, 10,000 plus competitors that year, we were in the top 48. So we got to perform on live primetime TV and share a little bit of our story. So that was a cool moment because it enabled us on a national platform to sort of legitimize cheerleading as an activity for not only just women, but men and all genders of all ages. And finally, a cool moment was the same year at the 2010 Cologne Gay Games in Germany, when it was the first ever cheerleading competition at any Gay Games. The Gay Games was founded back in 1982 here in San Francisco. And over the years, it's traveled from global city to global city. It ended up in Cologne, Germany, 2010. And so for the first time in front of a global audience, we got to compete and also share our story as a fundraising organization. And not only that, but Cheer SF kind of swept the cheerleading competition. We earned the gold medals, in the first gold medals ever in cheerleading at a Gay Games, which is pretty awesome. So on a global scale, we could share our story and our presence and our love, not only for the sport, but also the love for our fellow person, for humanity, and for philanthropy.
That is so great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sanford.
Well, I have so many really good stories. I think one of my favorite stories of Cheer San Francisco was right around the Gay Games. We went to Chicago in 2006, and it was the first time that we had a huge cross-country turnout of cheerleaders. We had Cheer New York, Cheer Atlanta, Chicago Spirit Brigade, Cheer San Francisco, Cheer LA, and I think they were Cheer San Diego at the time, all came together. And just to watch Cheer SF, and I remember I was helping with the Gay Games, and there was this flat color guard group, and they're like, "Oh, we need to go last because, we're going to be fabulous." And I go, "Okay, well, Cheer San Francisco normally goes last in all the Gay Games things because we were the first ones at Gay Games, so we normally go last." They go, "Oh no, we have to go last." And we go, "Okay, if you want us to go before you, we will." So we threw our routine, and of course, the lead of the color guard girl comes up and he goes, "Girl, y'all were fierce. Why'd you tell me? Now we have to follow you?" I said, "I tried to tell you, but you wanted to go last. So enjoy." That was one of those moments like, enjoy, it's on you. There was one, I have a negative one, which is kind of a funny one. We did a lot of really good training with the team on not engaging negativity. Always, if negativity comes to you, you engage it with love, engage it with positivity. People come to you, we hate you, you're terrible, blah, blah, blah. Because at the beginning of the 2000s, still there were people who were protesting against LGBTQI rights and just our existence of being. And so you see a bunch of cheerleaders coming down the street and they're like, oh, they're a bunch of queers, they're a bunch of the F word in a not so nice way. And we would just say, don't ever engage those people because they're not the ones who matter. It matters that we're here because there's people who are so excited to see us. And some little boy or some little girl or some little person is going to see you one day and be happy just to see you. So we're coming down the street. It's Sacramento Pride. It's their parade. It's probably 2004, 2005. And we're coming down the street. And the rule was if protesters ever engage, you'd never say anything. And we're coming down the street. I'm on the microphone. I'm calling out cheers and I'm saying something. And this protester got over the barricades and came out of nowhere right here into my peripheral vision. And she goes in my face, shame on you, in my face. It freaked me out. And I didn't do my positivity thing. I just turned to her and go, oh, shame on you for bad fashion and that hair. And the cheerleaders cracked up. All of her protester people by her started laughing at her, and everybody laughed. And I went, "Oh no, I just engaged." And I said, "And we're keeping moving." And so then after that, we always do a little huddle before we go on to our next thing. And I had to apologize to cheerleaders that I'm really sorry. Don't behave like that. Don't behave like Mama Sanford. Do what I say, not what I do. So that was my negative, but it was a funny negative, and it ended up being really good because I think the next year when we went, I saw a lot less protesters at Sacramento Pride.
Can't stop laughing. Oh, thank you so much for that. I'm just imagining what the bad fashion might have looked like. I don't know.
My gosh, it was hideous. I mean, the hair was just like so Karen. It was so Karen. I'm like, Karen, come on.
Steve.
Yeah, it's segueing from Sanford's bad fashion. Some real bad fashion that I saw during my time was in I think it was the mid '90s. We went to a pride in the Central Valley in a city, and we were warned in advance that we might see some people in really bad fashion, and there they were. My first time I'd ever seen that type of bad fashion. It was the KKK.
Wow.
And I think it was about 10 years after that, there was more bad fashion up in Alberta, Canada. There, a few people the KKK was there as well. And but we kept moving forward. And everything that Wen and Anel and Sanford had said, I could be on my list of favorite things. And there's just so many, having a chance to travel and be with the organization across the United States and in so many cities across the globe. It's just unimaginable for me, from that first day in Collingwood Park with 7 or 10 men back in 1990. Could not even dream of all those things happening. And Sanford had mentioned earlier about what I'm going to mention is going to college cheerleading camp, and particularly the first time we did it. We went to UC Santa Cruz, and we went to USC. We went to UC Riverside. We went up to University of Nevada, and I was excited and a little bit scared in a good way about how it would be received. And as Sanford described, we were not only received, but we were, all the college kids just fell in love with us. We had college age people on the team all the way up into their 40s, and just that experience. And to Sanford's point, getting the feedback that instructors would look for Cheer SF and vie to be able to be assigned to us to instruct us, because they would relate to me that we were so focused and so so wanting to learn, and just such a fun group to be with. And then the times during camp, after camp, the kids, everybody was a kid to me because I was typically the oldest, but the kids hanging out with Cheer SF and just being accepted. That was really good memories for me.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. If we take all of your stories and your experiences and the thousands of others who have been a part of the cheer movement, I think that they have been a part of a lot of change and progress in the last 40 years. And when we talk about specifically LGBTQI rights or equal rights, a lot has happened. And here we are today in 2020, and we're addressing, racial justice. And we continue to talk about other important issues that impact our community, but would love your thoughts. It's an open question to the panel, whoever would like to add your thoughts on how you think, the changes have impacted the organization and its work, and kind of, where Cheer SF is at now at 40 years old, maybe some things you're proud of, what the organization stands for today, and how it's expanded than 40 years ago. So who would like to start first?
I'm happy to give it a whirl. Sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really great question. Obviously, on Cheer SF being so community-based, we acknowledge that we do not function or operate in a silo, that we are very much a product of our surroundings. So we're pretty good at keeping our ear to the ground and our fingers on the pulse of our social movements that will affect us and our volunteers within our own internal community. What I've seen in my experience now going on 19 years with the team is we're very good at being responsive to community needs. For example, even in 2020 with George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, we acknowledge the intersectionality as well of our struggles, not only being LGBTQ, but also being people of color, being Black and Indigenous, intersex, trans, everything. And so we honor that intersectionality by championing those causes as well. On top of being a fundraising team, we're also just a signal booster. We like to raise spirits and awareness as well as funds. So we have been openly standing in solidarity this year with the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, with the George Floyd narrative. And so whenever we sense an attack, for example, on an intersecting community, we feel that and we hold it up and we uplift our brothers and sisters and everybody else. And so I think that's something that's really beautiful about what Cheer SF does. Yes, we are hardcore performers. We're good at what we do. And we're fabulous fundraisers. I think this past year, we generated and donated $60,000 to our beneficiaries, which is amazing, being that we had to deal with the pandemic and canceling all of our in-person events. And by the way, that $60,000 donation total this year has brought our cumulative lifetime total to 500,000 plus as of this year, which is an extraordinary milestone. And that would not be possible, though, if we didn't pay close enough attention to the needs of our community and where we can best service and deliver our energy and our spirit.
That was so good. And congratulations on raising that amount of money. And you're right, during a pandemic, which we'll get to, and kind of how COVID-19 has impacted all of your work. Anyone else want to add to that? Steve?
Yeah, I just, one of the things that I used to contemplate about Cheer SF and who we were and who we became and where we'll continue to evolve is the diversity of the organization itself, and why some people are so drawn to us and we're so successful at what we do, because it's an organization that people who interact with us or see us, they can find someone in front of them that looks like them, either gender or age or size or race or orientation. So that's, I kind of wanted to share that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, today you can hop on Netflix and there are way more, movies or the TV shows with episodes. Come on, Michelle. Brain work. You know what I mean? But include scenes and images of queer representation in sports and activities such as cheer, when it used to be, let's face it, very hetero, very female. And I would think that it's because of the work that we all do in our community to break those stereotypes. Anyone else want to add before we move on? Okay. Well, we brought up the pandemic, and yes, we're celebrating 40 years of Cheer SF. I've had a great time this afternoon with all of you, and y'all bring me back to those good times that we've all been able to come together and go to these events that Cheer SF has been, or even have Cheer SF at our own functions and raise money and do something great for our community. So yeah, it's been sad, it's been tough, it's been hard this year to not be able to be together. But I can't imagine, even with most folks pivoting and using virtual experiences, that Cheer SF has been. I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of hard to do some of your stunts, in a home. But you tell us, how has COVID-19 impacted your work? We'll start with Anel, since. Did you mention earlier that you were promoted or elevated to the captain role? And if that's new, like, I would imagine that being captain during COVID is hard.
My captainship ended right kind of at the start of COVID. So I kind of had to end that in a weird way without being able to like kind of end it with a bang, with pride. But that's okay. What ended up happening is I was then promoted to a leadership position. So I actually do social media and marketing. So what Wynn was saying about all the social media posts in support of Black Lives Matter and other supportive movements like that, I've been kind of overseeing and spearheading and just hoping to spread positivity out there while we can't be out in the world spreading positivity in person. But yeah, so with the pandemic, it's so hard because our community usually interacts with us in person with a big group of us all at once in our uniform with our pom-poms doing stunts and performances. And so now with the pandemic, that's kind of all been not possible. So we've switched over to Zoom calls every 2 weeks, like Wynn mentioned before, just to kind of get us all in one screen and all seeing each other. I think since we're not able to perform and kind of see each other on a weekly basis with practice, we kind of lose that sense of like community. So having those Zoom practices every 2 weeks has at least given us that like social interaction that we need as a team. And we've been with the social media team, we've been trying to come up with creative ways to continue our fundraising efforts. So we've shared the Amplify event, which was a celebration of all of the grants that we've donated to all of our beneficiaries. So through that, we've been able to also fundraise a little bit by sharing that. And we have a couple of fundraisers coming up too that we'll be sharing kind of during the holidays to keep raising money for our beneficiaries since we're not able to perform. But yeah, it's been different, and we're working to sort of adapt and but also keep the same Cheer SF spirit.
Thank you for keeping the spirit going, and congratulations on your new role. Sanford.
Well, since I'm not actively on the team anymore, I have the lovely luxury of being invited back to do pride parades and stuff. So that was one of the little bummers this year because I was looking forward to doing Pride and emceeing the parade, and also Africa was going to be appearing on main stage with the team. So it's a bummer. That part was a little bit of a bummer. The thing that I'm so proud of the team is I'm following them on all the social media, specifically Instagram. Their Instagram story is phenomenal, and if you get a chance, everybody out there, cheersf.org, please don't go to the page and donate. Please go to the Instagram page, go to the Facebook page. Can't push it more. But like Anel said, it's just kind of sad that we as the organization can't interact with people live, but I still think there's ways that you can interact and get involved. So please check them out.
When?
Thanks for that plug, Sanford. And just FYI, the Instagram handle that y'all want is @CheerSF, and it is lit. So fun. As Anel mentioned, we've had to pivot, that word pivot, a lot in a lot of ways, internally and externally. So internally, from an operational standpoint, yes, we used to have in-person practices every single week, and those were hard and they were fun and needed. Now that we don't have that luxury, we have moved to a virtual model. So bi-weekly, we do have that Zoom call that Anel mentioned. It's a way to keep us all connected and also to keep the information and ideas flowing and communication lines open. I think that's super important when we're supposed to sort of be isolating most of the time. Externally, yes, we again are not just fundraisers, we are spirit raisers and awareness raisers. So we've been using whatever digital channels that we have access to push out these messages, not only of community, but also of support for other causes that are maybe not directly related to our mission, but adjacent. So you've seen some social equity messaging and other related marketing that Anel has been heading up, and it's been beautiful and well received so far. Also, we have an internal Get Out the Vote campaign brewing because this is a pretty consequential year, as we've all heard and we all know. So we have not let the pandemic stop us. We have suffered, of course, as everybody has, but we have not quit. If there's one thing that we're good at, it's innovating on the fly. And what that comes from is when we had live performances, sometimes there would be a last minute injury with one of our performers. So we would have to very quickly reset the routine and restructure the performance minutes to go before we take the stage. So we're used to having to pivot at a moment's notice. And I think I'm so thankful that we have not lost that entrepreneurial spirit and that we continue to look forward, because I believe our continue is looking to us as well.
Steve, I know, like Sanford, you might not necessarily be super active right now, but if you'd like to add anything with regards to COVID-19 and its impact on CheerSF.
Yeah, I've been concerned, and so I'm so glad to catch up and learn that that CheerSF drive and that continues, and what they're doing is just, I'm so proud and happy, and I'm looking forward to the day when they can get back together again in person and continue to be as they are currently and will be down the road, a gift to the world.
Absolutely. As we wind down on time, I mean, I do want to give you a heads up. When you had said it earlier, CheerSF is really good at pivoting. And so you will be put to the task towards the end here to come up with a quick chair before we send everybody away. We are celebrating 40 years and of great work and of great talent, and to everyone who's been a part of CheerSF for the last 40 years. Thank you. But the question is really, trying to look forward into 2021. When mentioned the election, it's a very important election. So we're all trying to stay positive, hopeful here, but also plan, what might be our 2021 activities or what our life might look like. And I know that's kind of hard, but I thought about it And there's no reason why maybe perhaps that, we could create little, I don't know, maybe like a sphere or something around each of you as a performer, and then throw you up in the air like, we do with beach balls. It was just an idea I came up with, and I was thinking that's how bad I want to see Cheer SF again. But anyway, that was a very corny way of saying, are there any plans at all, if you could come up with them, that you might be creative for 2021? Anel?
Yeah, I think, and we've been kind of doing this during our in-person kind of like socially distanced practices that we've had every once in a while, where we've been working on our skills. We do a lot of toe touches, so they're like jumps. So we're trying to bump up those skills and also learn new dance techniques. So in 2021, if being, in close of a contact stunting isn't a possibility, then I can see us maybe going back to our roots and doing cheers and dances the way the rah-rahs used to do. Socially distanced, of course, so in windows, 6 feet apart. Yeah, and I think that's still a way to bring a performance aspect without having to, be 1 inch away from your base.
When?
That's right, Anel. We are able to still produce a certain level of production, even with the social distancing requirements. For example, one of our key fundraising mechanisms right now is a virtual cheer. And so what we've done is small groups of us, spaced 6 feet apart, will pre-record a video segment, and it'll be a custom cheer. It could be a happy birthday message, or a good luck at this sales convention message for a corporate audience. And we've been able to market that and sell it to clients. So that's sort of our first foray into a virtual product. It is absolutely not the same as what we're used to and what our audiences really crave, but it's a step. So going back to the innovative spirit, this is the best that we've come up with for now, and there's still time to come up with even better ideas. But shameless plug, if anybody out there is interested in a custom virtual cheer, hit us up at cheersf.org. We'll be happy to pre-record a video segment or cheer outside your house, and we have done that.
I love it. You're giving me ideas. But if you like my idea too of like rolling around in that, the plastic bubble, just kidding. We want to keep you safe. All right. Well, it's time now, for that instant innovative moment where y'all are tasked to come up with a quick cheer for us before we let you go. Are you up for this? Maybe something
Sure.
easy?
We can do the cheer SF Oh Yeah one. You want to do that one, y'all?
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
5, 6, 7, 8. Cheer.
F.
S.
F.
Oh
yes.
CHEERSF.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, that's a problem with Zoom because you get echoes. So
I have another one.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I got a cheer. Let's do hip hip hooray 4 times for the 4 decades.
Okay.
So I'll start and you guys say hooray. All 4 of you. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
All right, 40 years.
Yay, 40.
Happy 40th year anniversary to Cheer SF. And again, thank you to all the folks who have come through in the past 40 years and supporting our communities. I say communities because you've impacted so many people around the world. Thank you to all 4 of you, Anel, Stanford, Wynn, Steve, for all the work that you do in our communities and for being a part of this program today on the Commonwealth Club of California.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having
everyone.
And thank you for joining us here tonight and or today. And if you enjoyed what you saw, what you heard, please support the work of Cheer SF. I'm going to point to Hwin very quick. Again, the handle on Instagram, and then where to go if people want to donate or hire you for those, special virtual messages or in the front of the yard messages.
That's right. So please connect with us at cheersf.org for more information and to book us for your next virtual event. And follow us on Instagram at cheersf.
Awesome. We'll see you next time. Thank you.